So while I was at lunch, I was on my phone on YouTube and on the Truth Heroes channel, watching a video which specifically talked about the philosophy of Rising the Shield Hero. Basically, it got into depth about the situation between escapism versus confronting reality. And that just got me thinking a little bit with the current political situation. More specifically, with the regressive left. Now, I would say also that the far right also has something similar to this, but the regressive left seems to be more of the vocal minority in the kind of group that we should be more concerned about. The reason why I say that I see some similarities with the current politics is because with the rhetoric from Antifa, as well as leftists like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and so on and so forth. And this is something that I believe that we should be talking about, because their own mindset of thinking, especially with their idea of socialism, and how they believe it should be implemented, is a very concerning one, because it's trying to escape. It's their own form of escapism, in all manner of respects. Here's the issue. A lot of young people happen to be in support of socialism. That is mainly this is from the millennial generation, some parts of Generation Z. But nonetheless, this is a still concerning problem. I believe that in one poll, it's actually 3 in 10 young adults actually believe that socialism should be implemented instead of capitalism. And that is a major concerning thing. But why is it that a lot of these people believe in socialism? I believe that the reason why is because of partly because of student debt. A lot of these people decide to go to college. They want to get a better education. But once they're all everything's said and done, all they get is a high amount of debt that they need to pay. So in many cases, people decide to take out loans, but that only changes who you're indebted to. Instead of the school or the university, you are indebted to the bank, which they want to have that loan paid back plus interest. And this only hurts considering that a lot of people tend to have a hard time finding work that not only supports them, but also would be able to pay off their way of life, which has become a major problem for a lot of universities in this day and age. That, I believe, is actually what sets people on the path of actually being more vocal about socialism. Because in terms of socialism, what they believe is that the government would be able to provide free tuition, free healthcare, and that sort of thing, which is a major important aspect that you need to think about. Because this is mainly about money. They want to get rid of the debt that they have. They don't want to pay for it. But when it comes to socialism, this is kind of a double-edged sword, considering that the government would be the one interfering in your life. Plus, you would be paying a huge amount of taxes in order to pay for such a thing. Because after all, nothing in this world is free. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And if you believe such a thing, you are deceiving yourself, or at the very least, you're being naive. That is what has developed a little bit of this mentality of the regressive left. They believe that socialism is the answer and nothing else. They believe that capitalism is inherent evil, and so on and so forth. So this, in its own way, and politically, the regressive left begins to build a black and white identity. But it gets even worse than that. It gets instead of just having a black and white perspective of the world, it actually is promoted by so many people. And I'm talking about the mainstream media itself. The mainstream media tends to go about this whole idea that Donald Trump is Hitler, or a lot of these groups such as Antifa are the ones who are doing some good, such as fighting against fascists. Because what Don Lemon said in his scene in Stick, as well as Chris Cuomo, also known as Fredo Cuomo, is that Antifa are just guys who are fighting against fascists, actual fascists, and not simple thugs that just want to beat people up for their own political opinion. And that creates a warped perspective on the world, because it basically places them in their own places a lot of people in the regressive left in their own fantasy. They want to be the hero of their own story. They want to be the good guys who saves the damsel in distress, which is basically the entire American population, or anyone who they see as oppressed, against those who they consider to be the oppressors, which is, in this case, the American government. And that alone, with just building up that narrative, it only increases not only their warped perspective of politics as being black and white, but also further pushes them into an idea of escapism, just trying to escape in this fantasy where you're the hero and the people who are against your political beliefs are the villains, because after all, socialism is the legitimate thing that should be looked into. Or, well, socialism is the correct answer to everything. Now, I have seen so many examples depicting what I just said. Like I said before, the mainstream media has been very critical against Donald Trump. And there has actually been some examples. I bet a lot of people remember back in 2016 when Donald Trump managed to... He was inaugurated as President of the United States, and MSNBC was covering his speech. Now, after the speech, one of the commentators said that his speech sounded more Hitlerian, thus implying that he was another version of Adolf Hitler. This only creates the idea of that Trump is the main villain of this story, which is a very bad idea, not only encouraged in terms of just good journalism, actual journalism, but also in terms of trying to understand the reality of politics in general. And that has encouraged a lot of people, especially millennials who are socialists, to adopt such a mentality. I'm talking about people like AOC and even groups such as Antifa. Because ever since that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came to become representative of one of the districts in New York, she's been not only vocal about attacking President Donald Trump and many of his policies, but has opted to propose such radical bills which would change the very fabric of American society. All this in order to stem as an example, climate change with her Green New Deal, trying to convert every single building to trying to end emissions from cow farts, which is completely stupid. To end sea shipping as well as airplanes and etc. 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 All in the name of combating this evil known as climate change. And a part of it was also, I would also say, is an attack on Donald Trump, because a lot of Democrats have been very vocal that he's not doing. They claim that he's not doing too much in the environment. So yeah, this was definitely an example of such a thing. But it gets even worse. Because thanks to the mainstream media and how they've been portraying Trump as this big villain and portraying Antifa as a great saviors that we should look up to because they're attacking fascists, it's just Antifa and AOC are just being encouraged to do some radical things. Antifa continues to go on with their stick of attacking innocents because they believe that they are actual fascists. A lot of the time, they just happen to be bystanders. Some of them don't even really know much about politics. Nonetheless, they still continue to attack them, to call them and label them as fascists or Nazis. All this because they are living in their own fantasy. And this doesn't help, especially with the situation after the Straight Pride Parade, in which AOC and Representative Presley tries to help out Antifa by paying for their bailout, and even encouraging a lot of people to donate for paying for their bailouts itself. Again, this is just a major issue. It's that the regressive left has been dealing with, and it's just going to get out of control, especially with the considerable amount of violence that's been going on with immigration centers. Ever since Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made this radical statement about comparing ICE detention centers to concentration camps, everybody just went not everybody, the regressive left, went full-blown crazy, believing that Donald Trump not only is Hitler, not only is he a Nazi and a white supremacist, but he's actually killing these people. And it was their duty to fight back against these detention centers. And as a result, you have seen an increase in terrorist activity from what happened in Tacoma with an attempted firebombing and shooting in an ICE detention facility. Thankfully, the shooter himself was killed. I already have. I'll actually put the video that's down in the description below if you guys want to check that out. And of course, four other instances. One case where there was an actual shooting of ICE offices, where one person was injured, and another case where a woman threw a Molotov cocktail with gasoline in an immigration center. Not a detention center, and an immigration center in Florida. No one was killed, but one person passed out as a result of inhaling so much gas. And again, their mentality of escapism, of trying to live out their fantasy as being the good guys, is just creating more problems. And that's actually part what I was going to be leading into. The problems with this. Because their actions, especially when it comes to violence, all of them have consequences. I would say that normally a lot of Americans actually don't have a common sense about what actions they take in order, especially in politics, about who won't be affected by the decisions you make. Let me give you an example. The whole trade war between the United States and China. Now, Trump, as we already know, he has put tariffs on Chinese products entering the United States. But he has actually made some threats about adding more tariffs as well in order to put China not only onto the negotiating table, but in order to force them into another position in order to in order to suit U.S. interests. Now, again, he still continues using these threats, but he realizes that if he places too much of a burden, this would obviously have an issue with the U.S. economy going into a recession. Now, you can say that this would affect his political re-election in 2020, which is why he's not doing this. And I would say that that has legitimacy behind it. But nonetheless, he understands that this has that doing such a thing has major consequences. I still personally support the tariffs, the situation of adding tariffs in order to bring down the Chinese from just doing a lot of this crazy stuff, especially with devaluing the yuan, but that's beside the point. At the same time, with the regressive less violence on everybody, they're just alienating everyone. Not just the moderates and the conservatives, but even liberals. Because they don't like the idea of labeling people as Nazis for no particular reason. They don't like the idea of people being attacked for just that label, despite the fact that they might not even have the same political ideology of Nazis. But apparently Antifa, not only in just their own delusion of grandeur, that they're the good guys, but in their own delusion of grandeur, they have actually considered pretty much everyone to the right of Karl Marx to be Nazis. And again, this is a major issue. Plus, they don't see the specific they don't really connect well to average everyday Americans who just have bigger problems of their own. Many of them just want to focus on the American economy, trying to get good jobs, etc., etc., etc. And all they're doing is that Trump is saying that Trump is a racist. He promotes concentration camps, and anyone who's a Trump supporter is a Nazi, creating divisive rhetoric that splits people apart based upon political affiliation. And that is a major issue, because that only just like I said before, that only turns off a lot of people from going into that ideology, because they're just all they're seeing is people, Antifa and AOC, just spewing crazy rhetoric without anything to back that up. And again, like I said before, not many people as a result are not affiliated with Antifa, not just because of the violence and their labeling, but also because they're not really looking into the average American's concerns, and that's definitely part of the problem. Again, it goes back to the idea of them with their whole escapist ideology of socialism, as well as not really taking up responsibility or even look at the reality of politics in general. And it's kind of funny, to be honest with you. I see a major comparison, especially in writing the Shield hero, when I think of Antifa. I think of Motoyasu. And if you guys don't know, he happens to be the spear hero who is one of the 4 heroes that is sent to the world which he is supposed to protect. And he is basically a suck-up to this princess named Mai, who, as it turned out, and yes, I'm going into spoilers here, falsely accuses the main protagonist of sexual assault, goes on to tax villages heavily, goes on to do so many bad things, and yet he's completely oblivious to it. Completely oblivious to it. That's how I describe how I think of Antifa, because they are completely oblivious, not just of the world around it, but how they're being used in general. Again, I look over to the mainstream media and the Democratic establishment in order to show, just to show the proof of this. And here's another thing that I also think about when I look at Antifa. I think of them in a way as Kratos, and from the God of War series. And I'm not talking about God of War 4, I'm talking about God of War 3, where Kratos kills all the Olympian gods, and at the same time it causes so much so much disaster around the earth as a result of his actions of killing the gods. Now, I know the story itself is completely different, especially because the Olympic Greeks are basically pricks, but nonetheless, he is drunk with vengeance and rage that he doesn't realize the result of his actions. He is just in that mindset that he wants to get rid of Zeus. And again, I see that in Antifa. And that is it's a scary thing, because you don't really solve problems when you're trying to escape reality. You're only creating them, and you're only festering them. And that's just only adding to the problem, because they will still be there. Only when you accept reality and try to understand the situation will there be a better chance for you to understand the political arena as well as the political environment around you. And I think that's lost on the regressive left. All they look at is just their own policies and their own politics, believing that somehow they are the saviors of the United States, and that if you don't like them, that you are simply a Nazi. Not only does it show a delusion of grandeur, it shows a lack of sense of reality. And that is a major problem with Antifa and the regressive left. I honestly don't see anything getting better at this point, especially with the Democratic Party. But as long as they continue to go on to this whole idea of a fantasy where they think that they are the good guys and everyone who disagrees with them or simply opposes them in some way is the villain, then they're only just going to cause more problems that should have been easily avoided in the very beginning. And it'll be only at the very end, whether they succeed or fail, which is most likely in the latter case, that they will see all the pain that they have wrought. And I will say this: you reap what you sow as a result of your actions. You did not take responsibility before. You did not see the entire reality of what has been going on. You did not get into research so much. And this is what has happened as a result. This is on you. That is all I have to say for not only Antifa, but the regressive left in general. My name is Nomi on the Arc Truth. Please post your comments down below, like this video, subscribe, and share with your friends. Also, if you have any issues with my videos, especially with how I speak or just how I make my videos, so on and so forth, please post your criticisms as well as suggestions down in the comment section below, or directly message me. Thank you.